All right, welcome to the DBT-LBC Q&A focus on the video session recordings, but we are answering any and all questions here today. So feel free to pop them in the chat. And we have two amazing panelists here today lending us their knowledge and expertise from their experience during the process. And they both are volunteers with LBC in different capacities. So if you guys could just take a quick minute to introduce yourself in case people don't know who you are, that would be wonderful. Whoever would like to go first.
I could go. So my name is Tali Wigod. I'm a clinical psychologist and I work at Cognitive Behavioral Consultants in White Plains, New York. I got certified in 2021, like a year after finishing my postdoc. And my first DBT training was years before that, actually, with Colleen. She was one of the leaders of the training. So that's a full circle moment for me.
Awesome. I can introduce myself. I'm Colleen Cullen. I'm a psychologist. My pronouns are she and her. I work at the Columbia University Irving Medical Center in Manhattan. And I have been LBC certified since, I had to look it up, since 2018, and had done my initial DBT training, probably was first exposed maybe around 2008, had done an intensive in I think 2010, so sometime between my initial training and certification.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming and donating your time. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this time will be helpful for everyone who's here. And it's also really helpful for LBC for us to know where people are finding barriers or getting stuck so that we can clarify stuff in our materials. I'd love to start off and just ask our two panelists if they could share their experience of having a discussion to talk with a client about recording. I don't know what the recording practices are at your clinic. Some people record ubiquitously, and some people have to have that specific conversation with just one client. Even if you record all the time, you have to have that conversation at some point. So can you discuss how you do that and maybe give some examples of how you might have that conversation with someone?
Sure, I can start off. So when I was going through certification, I had decided I didn't routinely tape all of my sessions, did at certain points for various reasons, but in approaching certification, I had in mind who I would be taping for certification. The process has also evolved over time, so I think it was related to who I wrote up the case conceptualization for, et cetera. And I had one person that I was planning to tape and talk to that person about the fact that I was going through the certification process, why I had decided this was something that I wanted to do, having the taping portion of it, and what that would mean for them, right? I think anytime I have taped sessions for whatever reason, I have really emphasized that the focus is meant to be on me, and certainly they are a part of the process, and understanding that and being able to talk it through and validate any concerns and recognizing this is really about folks taking a look at how I'm delivering the intervention and making sure that I'm delivering it effectively and according to the model. And I do think that was helpful talking about it with the person that I ended up taping. The other thing that I will say, and we have a set form in my clinic that we used, and the person signed off on that form. The other thing I would say too, which I might be jumping ahead, Jessica, to a question, is
Go ahead.
this is just how I am with things of I moved my way, whatever was the maximum time that I could spend at each stage, I did. If it was, I think it's 6 months after the exam, you're submitting tapes, I really kind of took my time going through this. I did start taping early, just knowing this was someone that I was planning to tape. At the time, we weren't on Zoom or anything like that, so it was a lot of logistics around the camera and the tripod and what angle, and my first couple tapes I had to dump because it was, I don't know where we were looking, couldn't see both of us. And it was just really helpful for me to get comfortable with having the recording on. So I taped, obviously you need the 3 sessions. I think I probably taped with one person 12, 15, something like that, just so I could get really comfortable. It felt like less pressure to me in each session. There is also that piece for this process of like needing 3 sessions in a row. And so like in that way, like feeling really comfortable that I'd have a sequence of 3 that I felt good about. And then just last piece I'll say, and then I'll turn over to Tali, is like, you know, I really like going through, and I forget what it's called, Jessica, the form that you have to fill out to submit with the sessions.
A session information form. It's probably
The
changed
session
since you were
information.
here, but yeah, I think that's what it's called now.
Okay. I had like, I would fill it out right after the sessions. Like I just had a folder that all 15 sessions or whatever, I had a session information form and the diary card right next to each other. And I wrote little notes for myself on the form of like things that I wanted to watch back in the video to see, like things that I wasn't quite sure about, or things like I think I probably wrote down on the form, like this one was great, you know, like go back to this one kind of thing, just to keep track of it. I was going back there.
So when I was going through this process, it was 2021. So it was like post, COVID switch. So everything I was doing was on Zoom. And that stage in my career, I was still having supervision. So I was in the habit of recording pretty regularly. So I had already gotten consent at the onset to record sessions. But with the person that I chose, I had a separate conversation about recording for this purpose. And they were very willing to help me in my, like academic and professional journey to do this. And that's kind of how I phrased it. Like, this is an opportunity for me to confirm that I already know I'm doing a good job, right? You're not getting subpar treatment. And also like have that, what's the word, like sign off that this is like the highest level of care and you get to be part of that process. And they were very excited and willing to do that. I think related to what Colleen said, I would also review sessions that I wanted to submit to just make sure, and also review them with, I had an opportunity to review at least 1, maybe even 2, I'm not sure, I don't remember, with a colleague who had already been certified to kind of like get her take on that, which was really, really helpful. Big exposure, but also really, really helpful. And yeah, because I was in the habit of recording already pretty across the board, it wasn't such a big adjustment, and it was also on Zoom, so a little different from Colleen's experience.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. And I think you guys come at recording from different angles, but ethically, we obviously have to require a specific conversation, even when you are recording regularly. I know that having that conversation has been a barrier for people, just like not sure how to have it or what to say or what to do or how it would feel. I know my client felt like really grateful that she had a chance, which is not maybe everybody's experience, but obviously you have to be thinking about the kinds of people who might feel comfortable with that and who wouldn't, and that's okay. So thank you guys for sharing. I put the session information file that Colleen referenced in the chat. Hopefully whenever things get referenced, I'll just be able to pop them in the chat for you. That's my goal. If you do have specific questions about videos or really anything, please let us know. I will go over a couple things. I want to put this in the chat. This is, nope, that's still the other thing. Okay. This is the applicant handbook. This wasn't here forever. So if you haven't seen this, this is like the most concise place for information instead of going through the trillions of tabs on the website. Everything that you need to know should be in there. I'm glad that it exists. It didn't used to. So we do have a question. I'm going to pause what I was thinking to say that because I want to make sure that we prioritize answering what you guys need to. Let's see. The question is, I know that we need 3 adherent sessions. Is it only that 1 needs to be adherent in the end? If you guys, Colleen or Tali, whatever, would like to take that.
Yeah, so this is my understanding of the material that was presented to me, is that it's 3, in your mind, adherent consecutive sessions, and only 1 is ultimately coded. And you don't know which one is coded, so you want all of them in your mind to be as adherent as possible, so you have the highest likelihood of passing that adherence check.
Yeah. Great. Yes, that I agree. And then her second question kind of piggybacks off that. I've recorded some sessions with a stage 1 client who didn't end up having stage 1 behaviors in those particular sessions. Is that a problem? So as a reminder, like the videos that we're recording, one of the things I wanted to highlight is they need to be with stage 1 clients. So I love that you're thinking about that. Do stage 1 behaviors have to come up in those particular sessions? Would you guys like to answer those questions?
Colleen, I'll give you a chance.
Sure. Well, and I think, I wonder if in stage 1, it's also like thinking about, I wonder if there's a different question that is like target 1 behaviors coming up that you're really chaining. I think I remember hearing this along the way, like in various DBT forums. I do think that having a session that has target 1 behaviors with a stage 1 client is really helpful for being able to code adherence. I do think both as someone who's supervising others as well, there's so much opportunity to be able to show your knowledge of DBT when you have target 1 behaviors in a session. And if they are stage 1, they are stage 1, right? And that is what the requirement is. So I think you certainly could submit 3 sessions where there aren't target 1s. I would just say, and anybody, Jessica, Tali, correct me if you view it differently. I think like when you're thinking about which sessions, in the same way that, I might have had the note for myself of like, great validation, and like use of the levels of validation in the session, like I would be very interested in submitting something that had target 1s. I think that would be my take on it.
Yeah, I was just to echo that. I think what I heard was like it makes it a lot easier because it's a little bit more, concrete to chain out and to do all your nice interventions. The session one of the sessions that I submitted that I ended up reviewing with one of my colleagues was mainly targeting a therapy interfering behavior of like really not liking group. So that also was a little bit more like concrete that we could address and intervene. And I remember that session really well because I had reviewed it multiple times with other people. So that wasn't a target 1, it was target 2, and it was still, hopefully that's the one that was coded and passed.
Yeah, I mean, you never get to really know what was coded. I ended up submitting sessions that just included like very basic behavioral activation, like, because in the consecutive 3, like I just had it. So I mean, that could have been the one that was coded for sure. I'm not, we don't get to know, but so it is not a requirement, but I would agree that all the coders that I've spoken with, it makes it easier because you're very clearly seeing the skills, but it is not required. But you do need to be attending to those behaviors. So I think it's helpful. I mean, you might need to speak to the invisible coder a little bit. You're reviewing the diary card, and sometimes I do that. I mean, I try to do that out loud, but do I sometimes see stuff in my mind and just skip over it while I'm saying certain things out loud that I'm trying to highlight? I would be thinking about while you're taping, highlighting stuff like, this is, like, this is why I'm skipping over these kinds of interventions. So, your SI is at a 4, but it's really stable, but that's baseline for you. We're going to attend to this other, like just talking through a little bit about why you're making those choices. And I think that's part of doing the diary card practice out loud anyways, but just thinking about like, you're kind of talking to somebody else in the room too. You might be a little uncomfortable. You don't have to. You can always write that information in the session information thing that you fill out at the end, which is why Colleen was like, "Ooh, do it right away," because you remember. But you could also just do it out loud. Just a tip.
Yeah, I think that was really good advice also that I got, like when I wasn't gonna address a T1, to really say why. Like something like, we really understand this already. We know that talking about this is super reinforcing, so we're not gonna talk about it. Like something like that to the invisible coder so that they know why, and you don't get, docked or whatever, penalized for not addressing.
I think I had a 3-point difference that I didn't chain, but it was like, oh, we looked at it. This is your thing. We know this. And I just gave like here's what we know. Let's move on and not so as long as you can rationalize like why, it'll still help you check the box. Okay, if you have more questions about that, let me know. Chelsea, your hand is raised. Would you like to unmute and ask a question?
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. I just wanted to follow up on that first question about the video. So we're gonna hope for 3 adherence sessions, and then they randomly kind of pick one. And then what if that one is not adherent? Do they watch another one, or is it kind of like, nope, you're done?
Okay, so with regard to the question, I am like reading a response from the board themselves, and they will look at your other videos if they are not coded. I feel like they've gone back and forth. So the one video is selected at random to code. If that video is coded to adherence, the others are not coded. However, if it does not code to adherence, then a second video is chosen to be coded. If that video codes to adherence, then the third video is not coded. However, if that video is not coded to adherence, then the third one is coded, and then they'll kick them back.
So
that is what I was told
Yeah.
somewhat recently. So in April. So it's pretty recent. Hopefully that helps. And so you got some cushion there. Hopefully. Anyways, this is from Kim herself. So then there you go. That's the president of LBC, the ever knowledgeable Kim Bay.
And then the other thing I was just going to ask that came up as you were talking, Jessica. So if the video is not adherent and you submit the other videos, does that still have to be within that 6-month time frame, or would you get more time? You know, like if I decide to wait until the last minute to submit those first set of videos, you know what I mean?
You get a new window of time. It's not 6 months, but if you're having issues getting more videos, like you can discuss that with them at that time. I think that they give you 90 days at like they just say you have 90 days, but like I had some issues getting my videos to them, and I explained my issues, and they were like, here's more time. So
thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I will look for this. It's in my emails somewhere. I know that like the board specifically wrote me an email about that at some point, so I will find it, hopefully. Judy, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
I think you kind of answered it. I'm on the verge. I have my videos done. After listening to you, now I'm having second thoughts. Maybe I should do different sets. I don't know. I'm not someone who videos all the time. But I'm on the verge of my 6 months. On the one hand, I feel like, what do I do? Just submit them and see if I pass? Or should I really be more thoughtful and do like, gosh, somebody said they did 12 videos and then was able to look at them all and see which ones to, I don't know. Now I'm having second thoughts. Should I like be more thoughtful, see if I can get a time extension, or just submit them?
Submit.
I heard that. I heard somebody say just submit.
I mean, I would say as the 12 recording person, I did not watch all 12. Like that was much more about not so much having something to choose from. That was my own comfort. Like I could feel the difference when I started recording and then moved along further. Like I just didn't feel like a radically genuine form of myself in those earlier tapes. So it was much less about like, from my perspective, saying like, oh, you must record all of these and then watch them all. Like it was more exposure for me. So just to be very clear on that. And I think that, not that there's any one answer, it's how each of us approach the process and what makes us comfortable. I do think that, in talking to folks, LBC and other certifications, I do think at some point it's just a press send moment that I don't know, Jessica, Tali, how you felt. I did not feel 100% confident when I sent them in, and I did it anyway. So I would say I think that's a pretty common experience of at some point having to say, I've watched them. For me, there wasn't the DBT adherence website at that time, but like had looked at the videos against an adherence checklist, felt relatively confident, and pushed send with a lot of butterflies in my stomach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna offer maybe a middle path is that you could, like, if you have a colleague that you could review it with, just so you feel a little bit more secure, and also at some point you just got to do it.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. This, by the way, I'm gonna have to leave. I have group in a minute.
Okay, you want to
but,
hear my quick answer to the sessions recording, or do you want to ask more things? I found
I just want to say this is super duper helpful. I'm a little intimidated about the whole process now of uploading it to whatever, and it seems a little. I'm gonna try and figure it out. I'm a little older. I'm not like the the techie generation, you know. So, but that's my next hurdle, and
I will say,
I'm gonna do my best I can.
Christy at contact@dbt-lbc.com .org. So sorry. I'll put that in the chat. She is like the most kind, helpful. Like if you have questions, like if you get stuck, I have my videos. I don't even know how to get them to you. I've tried, and like she will help. Someone will make sure that you can upload it. You can get some support through that. Like we are here to be helpful in those ways. We can't answer some questions, but like that we can try to help with for sure.
What happened to me, I had issues. Like my link had expired and I had to get a new link to submit the videos. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. Are there other questions that we can answer? If not, I think I did put the handbook in the chat. Yes, I did. Yes, Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks again for doing this. This is super helpful. This might be like a very basic question, but I think I've had the application in a rough draft stage for a good part of a year and a half, perhaps. And so my question is there utility in trying to have have studied for obviously I'm constantly reading and studying anyway, but for the exam, having the sessions recorded before submitting the application? Because I think my and maybe this is just my anxiety getting in the way over the process, is like that if I submit the application, that kind of starts the timer. And then what happens if I can't? I work with youth who have experienced commercial sexual exploitation, so our population can be very in and out and all over the place. So like what happens if the recording piece falls through within the time limit? So I guess my question is there utility in kind of getting that more organized before submitting the application, or going ahead and starting that?
So my understanding about the timeline is like it's the application, they have to review it. There's a little bit back and forth with like the initial application, at least for me there was, with like you have to write 3 case write-ups. So that is like time that's going by. Then you have to wait for them to like open the window to like sign up for the exam. Then you sign up for the exam. It's usually not the next day. I think mine was like at least a few weeks to a month. And then from the exam, you have 6 months to get the tapes in. So all of that could take, I mean, if everything theoretically happened in one day, it would be like a minimum of 6 months, but it doesn't all happen in one day, right? You're working on that. So I feel like it takes more like 8 months like that you would have, not like a 6 month, that short of a window. But you can't submit the tape until you take the test. So that's like the biggest thing you have to do first.
And the sessions, my understanding is they need to be recorded within 2 years, which is, I think in that way, right? I mean, there's a little bit of a note I felt. I certainly said like I was someone who took the maximum time at every stage, and still, like if you started taping today, you have, 2 years, not that the process would be expected to take that long. So I do think that gives you a little bit of time. Did I get that right, Jessica? That's yeah. So in that way, like I can imagine a scenario where if you wanted to, you could start taping now, even if you haven't submitted the application.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I felt better having that. I understand the anxiety of like, you want to have the bird in the pocket. I don't just made up that phrase. It's not real, but you have time. And I got an extension. So like
as did I, somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Tali did too. So
I actually didn't.
Oh, no extension.
Super quickly. I started working on my application in 2020 when I was actually on maternity leave because it was like one of the goals I had for all my free time. And then I was like trying to think back when I started and when I got certified. I think the whole thing was like 7 or 8 months. Because I was like super excited and eager. But that's just how I roll. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for asking that. I think that's super helpful. And I had really wanted to share that the two, you have that, it must be within those 2 years, but in your frame, like that's helpful. You get like that full 2 years. But this can't be like someone that you've banked and recorded like eons ago. So pros and cons, I guess. So, if there are other questions or things people would like to ask, you can. Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
So one of the questions I have for the videos is, so that's good. I didn't know they had to be recorded within 2 years, but for the 3 tapes, does it have to be 3 different clients? And you might have answered this already. I know I logged in a little late. Or is it just how many clients out of the 3 tapes should be?
it's the same client, 3
same client.
consecutive videos. So like Tuesday, or whatever, like 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, like consecutive. Or if you see them twice a week, 3 sessions in a row.
Right. So it can't be like session 1 and then session 7 because you feel like that's a really good one, and then session 10 it has to be. And it is very doable, and that felt like something I had to sit with and understand. It has to be 3 in a row that you feel good about.
Okay, so that I have a client who has TIVs and she doesn't show up every week, so that would not be the ideal client for the tapes.
As
Well,
long
it's the
as
next
they've shown
session.
up.
Yeah.
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 If they missed a session, no big deal. I mean,
Oh, okay.
you'd want to be attending to that at the beginning of your next session, obviously. But like,
Yes.
3 sessions in a row, like as long the 3 times that you've seen her, even if
Okay.
that client, like they might be, I mean, you could be dealing with a client who's about to 4 miss out, right? But so it might be across like months because they come to 1, 3 weeks of missing. Oh, well, they come to the 4th one, and then you're doing all the therapy interfering work, and then they miss 3, and then you come to the 4th one, and you're doing all that therapy. Like that's like 2 months, right? So 3 sessions. So as long as you've recorded the 3 times that you've seen them.
That makes sense. Okay. And I know they could be either in stage 1 or stage 2, like that doesn't matter.
Stage 1 only.
Oh, okay.
That is
I did not
different.
know.
That has not always been true. I don't feel like I can't.
No, it hasn't been.
I don't think
That's a newer addition.
A stage 1 client. I feel pretty sure about that. But so anyways, it is currently stage 1 requirement. They're doing this because the coders like feedback. It is easier for them to see you demonstrate skills when you're showing stage 1 clients. So stage 1 client is required.
No, that makes sense. And I'm not like very confident in DBTP yet. Like I've gone through the trainings, but I don't feel like that's my area where I feel very confident yet. So stage 1 definitely just feels more comfortable than stage 2 anyways. Okay, that's good information. Is there anything else that you would recommend people that are prepping to showcase their videos and send them over other than reviewing the adherence website where Melanie and Sarah have created, or is there anything else that you think outside of that would help people prep for the video submission and passing?
I was going to say the website. So it's great that you mentioned that. That was not a resource that was available at the time. I think that's not to say it's required and that you would have to do that. And I think it's an amazing resource, if nothing else, like to be looking at the checklist, right? And being able to watch your sessions with that in mind. So I think that's a really helpful resource. Tali had mentioned, and I did the same thing. Like I had a colleague, we were both going through it at the same time. And so we traded videos and both gave feedback, and it was more than anything like just some extra support of like, yep, you got this, looks good, kind of adding that in. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would say. I can't think of anything.
If you I don't know if like where you work has this, but if somebody else was coded adherently and you are allowed to watch their video, that might be like inspiring, or, you know, give you some hope, or I don't know, ideas of like things that you can incorporate. That was really another thing that I did, because I was where I worked as a postdoc also, and that was something that we got to do as postdocs, is to review and adherent, or hopefully adherent, because we don't know if it was coded or not, but a submitted tape.
Yes, no, that's helpful. And I know you mentioned, and I think I had just logged in when you were speaking, but I think you mentioned that in some of your videos, you kept in mind that the coders don't really know your client the way you know them. So like if there was something that seemed maybe like they would probably like rule you out in a way where like, oh, she's not being adherent, you kind of pointed out exactly the reason why you were doing what you were doing. Could you just repeat that? Sorry.
So what I had said was like let's say, for example, you're not gonna address, or you're not gonna chain out a target one behavior. Just say why in the video. So something that I said in one of my videos was like, oh, I see that, you know, your SI is there. We really understand this. We're not going to talk about it because we really know that talking about it is reinforcing. You're stable. We can move on to, you know, talking about why you hate group, right? Like kind of like really letting the coder know what you're thinking, because if you have a rationale, then they can understand why you're not doing it. But if they don't know why you're not doing it, they're going to assume that you're missing it.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you for that. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Any interesting choices that you're making that feel like a little off book, like if you have a rationale, explain it. And sometimes I will say that I ignored some stuff, like hard ignored some stuff. And like I can't like highlight that I'm ignoring some stuff. I mean, sometimes you can, but like this wasn't the moment like that. That's what the session information form, like I think Colleen said that she filled hers out right away. That is gold advice that I did not do. But
What was that?
I'll put it back in the chat. There's a session information form that you have to fill out along with the 3 consecutive sessions. I might have put it in there before you got here. I'll put it back in. It's basically like it goes over like what targets are you treating. It kind of gives a little bit of, nope, that's not the link. What are your client's life worth living goals? What are the highest priority target in the session? Like it just gives some like context that the person wouldn't have for this. And I put in there like, ignored the crap out of this on purpose. Here's why. And like, because I couldn't say it, but I didn't want them to think I just like didn't notice. Like I very clearly noticed and was like, nope, I'm just gonna nope that. So I think if you just explain it, I am trying to put it in the chat. It'll be easier when I'm not talking.
So you give that to the coder when you submit your videos.
Yes. Yep. It is a form. Just keeps.
Tell me to try.
Nah, I got it. It just kept doing the adherence thing that I just posted. It was like, come on. Anyways, it's a zip file, so it's not going to take you to a website. It's going to download a file, but it will open when you open the zip.
Yeah, and my process was I had it printed out, and I mean it was like stop recording, walk to my desk, write down on the form just really quickly, and then I like I said, I had a file folder, and I would put the session information from a diary card together right in the folder, and that did make it much easier once I went to submit.
Organized.
Yeah. And when I was doing it, my diary cards were electronic, not virtual. So I like would download as a PDF and I attached it. So just like a different situation.
Yeah, so you need to complete the session information for the consent and then the diary cards to go with it, which is what they're saying. I do have a note to say that in the session information form, which it's not like I can share my screen with you exactly right now. There's a part that talks about the identification of stage of treatment the client is in currently. Like there's a section that you fill out and like explain why they're in stage 1. And like only those stage 1 targets is what they're like really monitoring and coding for, is what I'm supposed to say. You can submit pre-treatment sessions as a part of stage 1, like your orientation sessions too. Like that is another tidbit. You don't have to.
Really? for
I would
video?
for me, but like I'm not saying that you can't. I just feel more confident in my other sessions. But yes, pre-treatment sessions 1 through 4 is also considered part of stage 1. And there's like adherence benchmarks for what things you need to cover in an orienting session. So they can code for adherence during that.
One more quick question. So like I have a very good idea of like what I need to do in pre-treatment, but is there any, but I don't know if it's like Linehan is accepted. So is there anything that Linehan has like sort of on the website that has very specific things that you need to cover in pre-treatment? Just so like if I were to submit a pre-treatment session, I want to make sure it's accepted.
Yeah, I go to the book, the red book with the black face. There's a chapter,
Okay,
and there's like a table with little like bullet points.
got it.
That's
Okay,
what I do.
thank
To
you.
make sure that everything on your list is on that list. The adherence measure that they're using is proprietary. So like I don't know, like I don't have access to it either. I'm not trained on it. So like, but it's based off of that book. So I would go to the book. Does
Thank
anybody
you.
else have anywhere else that they direct them to? I don't know if there's anything on the adherence website about it. I can't think of any
Just
spot
that if
about it.
you're doing an adolescent, to probably consult the Rathus and Miller book.
Oh,
Just-
fair. Okay. I feel like we've covered all the things that I was like, oh, these are important topics for the video. After you pass the videos, because we're gonna just manifest that for a minute, they will recheck your like license applications, verificate like all that stuff again, because it might have been a while since they checked it in the application stage. So you'll get an email that goes, woohoo, you pass. And you'll be like, does that mean I'm certified? And it'll be like, well, almost, we're just gonna double check your license. And then they mail you this like really pretty certificate and send you a fabulous email, and then you party. So that's it. It's this like almost last stage with like a asterisk at the end where they do recheck all of your verification information. So you'll get an email that you pass, and then you have to like a little bit hold your breath, but it feels really good still. There's nothing more that you do. They just double check and run your credentials again, but they tell you as soon as they know that you passed. So
Thank you. Now that you mentioned the credentials, we have a couple of people on my team that they're really great therapists, but she just doesn't have her fully independent licensure. They need to be fully independent licensed, correct?
yes, to submit them, they do. I think I recorded my videos while I wasn't licensed, and then I waited till I was licensed to submit. But yes, in order to, you have to be independently licensed. I don't quote me on the what I specifically did, but you have to be licensed to start the application, and your videos can be anytime within the last 2 years. So that like, right, you could start before you're licensed. So great celebration of licensure, I guess. Any other questions?
This has been super helpful. Thank you so much. And you guys may have run something like this for like the application process and the exam process. But Melanie and I are here kind of and representing other members of our team, because a lot of us are trying to get licensed, but we're kind of at the stage where we've had a working group. We've been trying to run through content for the exam, but I guess I'm curious if you guys have advice that we can pass along around how best to be prepared for the exam part of this.
Yeah, we did run one of these for the exam. We'll run more, but I would love for Colleen and Tali to like get a chance to share like exam study ideas from that. And then I can kind of share what was said there too.
Sure. So, what did I do to prepare? So, I had like a year and a half prior to taking the test, I had done my foundational training. So that was pretty fresh in my mind. And I was doing Adherent DBT. That really helped. Teaching group at the same time while preparing was helpful too. So you have like the skills fresh in your mind, etc. Reviewing obviously Linehan's book and that validation article. And then I also read Kelly Kerner's book, which I found really helpful. But honestly, the exam is not intended to trick you. If you have like a little PTSD from like any licensing exam, it is not like that. It took me longer to drive to the test than to take the test. I live in New Jersey and I had to drive to Connecticut just because of whatever testing locations. It really is intended to pass people who know DBT well, not to trick people. So I didn't find it hard. I found it like a really nice exercise of my DBT knowledge. And again, like it's really not hard. If you know DBT well, you will be fine.
On mute.
Yeah.
Colleen, would you share?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like things evolved over the course of time. I found the exam a little challenging. I think, I have found it helpful to see on the website that the pass rates have improved over time. And I would imagine, and Jessica probably knows more, that things evolved as they saw people go through the process. Everything that Tali said and Jessica just put in the chat, like really knowing the 1993 text, like I would say that's the thing that I focused the most on and I think was the most helpful. And, like I had flashcards that I made related to specific concepts. I do think there was like a bit of like, if I'm remembering correctly, and Jessica Tali tell me if I'm wrong, like there are things you need to know, right? To be like knowing the 6 levels of validation. There were just certain things that it felt like you needed to have memorized, and going through that, I thought the practice questions helped me get a sense of that, of like, there are some things that just required memorization. I really like Kelly Kerner's book as well, as like, I think going from the Linehan text to the Kerner in that order helps you take like all of the concepts that are there and like really kind of distill the key pieces. And I think probably my piece of advice would be like, don't search far and wide for other things, like the validation article as well. Those pieces to really hone in on and not get yourself too frazzled on like, and where else should I be looking and what else should I know? The training manual also. So I guess it's the Linehan text, the training manual, and the article.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way to study is so unique to you and how you study. Like whatever you do well to study for things, like I can tell you what I did, but like it's a little bit of telling you how I study for things. Like I went to the Linehan text and look at the tables and was like, I'm going to memorize all these tables. Like if I look at this table and I can't list off everything in this list of like orienting strategy or dialectical strategies, I'm going to like memorize it. And there are times where that having it memorized is really helpful. That's just like, this is the way that I study. That doesn't have to be the way that you study. A lot of people, Chelsea recommended in the chat, really like the Back to the Book class. It's not associated or affiliated with us at all. It's really just helping you engage with the text that the exam is based off of. And so some people like to study that way. It's a little bit of community. It's very structured. That feels good. Anxiety reducing. So like whatever your style, you don't have to pay for study classes like that. But if that helps you, like, that's so great. Like, please do whatever is useful. Let's see. There's sample questions that I put down here. But there's like so many ways to study. Erica Tan, who's one of our board members, talks about having an accountability buddy. So I love that you guys are here together and are working on studying together. That's so great. Yeah.
And I think I also did it with a member of my team at the same time, which was very helpful for accountability. And we actually, we divided up chapters in the Linehan text, and we each outlined half of the book and then combined our notes together. So that's like, I need things like written down, outlined, distilled, and I'm that person of like, I read and then I outline and then I flashcard from there. And working together to not be responsible for outlining everything myself was really helpful. So if you're working on it together, I think that could be really nice.
This is a great segue to saying not everybody has that. And so one of the things that we've come up with doing from these town halls is if you are here and you don't know anyone else in the processor who's ever been certified, like that sucks. It was just such a resource for me to be able to ask someone who's been through this before. So we have been starting these informal peer support groups. This isn't like LBC is like doling out special information. This is like, hey, let's connect people who are in the process who might not know anybody. If you use this link and you sign up, I will start an email with anyone else who signed up and let you guys take the reins of like what kind of supports you might provide. Some email threads have been active. Some people have like never responded. So I don't know, maybe they took it somewhere else, but this is just us trying to connect you in case you don't have a support network. So you can fill that. I put the link in the bottom if you would like that. I'm thinking, I'm hopeful that that is helpful. We don't actually have feedback on it yet. It's pretty new. So, I saw one other question came up that we haven't answered yet. Is there a general amount of time it takes to hear back if your video is passed? I am smirking because it says in the manual, you will hear within 90 days whether you have passed. And I also know that there's this backlog of coding videos. So I will say you will hear within 90 days. And like, I don't, I know that there's a backlog of videos submitted to things coded. And so I don't know, could it be longer? I don't know. Will they email you saying, hey, we're working on it, I promise? I actually don't know. But that's the goal. 90 days is the goal. That's what I will say about that. They are working on training up more coders, so there's not a backlog. So
there was a backlog when I went through it again a long time ago, and so I can, not the sort of LBC line, and just speaking from experience, it did take longer than 90 days. And I knew that there was a backlog at the time, and I waited patiently. I didn't get updates along the way. It happened in the middle of it. And so I remember talking to Joan Russo, who was the president at the time. She let me know there was a backlog. That's all I needed to know. I just, when when it's the 91st day and you haven't heard back, that was a little anxiety provoking for me. And I think I probably didn't email Christy at the time. I think just like checking in, not excessively so, I'm sure, and just like, if it's past that time, maybe a check-in to know that everything's there and the status of things. I would imagine it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions checking in about your status of anything, like Christy, I'll put her email here, is a great resource. And they will email you either way. So if it's not like you're just never going to hear from them if you pass or if you fail, like you will hear either way. So, but yeah, I think it's taking a little longer. Will there be confirmation that the videos have been correctly uploaded and received? I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah. If you're worried about that, you can always email Christy if you don't receive a confirmation. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got an email.
I think so too.
I think so. Thank you guys for coming so much today. And if there's anything you have more questions about, email contact@lbc.org. Thank you guys. All right. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.